Julie Andrews' voice was discovered in the air raid shelters of World War II. And it's not true.
But what is true about Dame Julie Andrews is that in a town that's seen 'em come and seen 'em go, she seems to be forever above it all.
That a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down.
Generations of movie fans know her as the magical Mary Poppins.
The hills are alive with the sound of music.
Or as Maria, the sweet singing governess in The Sound of Music. Then there are her roles in films directed by her husband of 40 years, Blake Edwards.
I need the time to be alone.
Dudley Moore's long-suffering girlfriend in the movie 10.
Say something.
Off, George.
Watch this.
Or the down-and-out actress pretending to be a man, impersonating a woman in Victor Victoria. With so memorable a career, you might find it difficult to believe that Julie Andrews, Oscar, Grammy, and Emmy Award winner, has far fewer warm memories from her youth.
Well, I didn't have a normal childhood, but I didn't know that I didn't.
It was a childhood marked by divorce, alcoholism, and poverty. She was born Julia Elizabeth in 1935 to Ted and Barbara Wells. He was a teacher. Her mother was a pianist. They separated when she was just 4 years old. Soon afterward, her mother teamed up with singer Ted Andrews to form a musical act. They married and eventually made it a family affair.
I had a kind of freak 4-octave voice that I could do so many calisthenics with.
The sort of voice that captivated audiences throughout England. It wasn't long before young Julie became the act's star attraction.
Their act was Ted and Barbara Andrews with Julie, with little Julie. When it became Julie Andrews and Ted and Barbara, I think it must have hurt dreadfully.
By age 15, little Julie was the breadwinner of the family, supporting her mother, stepfather, and 2 younger brothers.
It mattered very much that we raise ourselves up from the poverty that began our lives. So, yeah, I did everything I could to help and support and be responsible as well.
I wouldn't say that it was a particularly happy childhood, although she convinced herself it was a happy childhood.
Andrew's daughter, Emma, helped her mother write her new autobiography.
When we were working on the book together, several times she said to me, "This is pretty grim. I hope that this isn't going to be a terribly depressing story. I don't think I realized quite how, dark sometimes some of these moments in my childhood were."
There were also some difficult things that you went back and talked about. Your stepfather and his alcoholism.
Yes.
And his inappropriate behavior towards you.
Yes.
Andrews recounts the story in the audio version of her new book.
I noticed that he smelled of alcohol and was breathing heavily. Suddenly he said, "I really must teach you how to kiss properly," and he kissed me full on the lips. It was a deep, moist kiss, a very unpleasant experience.
He was a sick man. He was an alcoholic, and I guess that kind of personality. There were days when he tried, and there were days when it was just impossible.
And that must have been very hard for your mother, being
Yes, I think she
in the middle of that.
I think she felt very guilty for all of the children. But it was what it was. I mean, compared to so many other people, we were surviving.
Surviving as a family also meant keeping secrets. Andrews was 14 before her mother told her that her real father wasn't the man she thought.
She explained that she had a one-time liaison with the man by a beautiful lake not far from Walton. She went on to say that it had been very hard to keep this secret for so long.
At first, I wasn't sure it was true, and I never mentioned it to anyone, because if it wasn't true, I didn't want to make my brothers unhappy. Many, many years later, I asked my aunt if it was true, and she said yes, it was.
Despite all this, Andrews says she considers herself blessed.
I call the book home because I hope people will say, well, what was home? Was it the theatre? Was it really home, my home that I'm referring to?
Moving from adolescence to adulthood, Andrews found a new home on the London stage. And at age 18, she caught the eye of the producers of a musical comedy called The Boyfriend and was offered the lead in the New York production.
She knows she has reached the stage of needing one to care about.
She opened on Broadway on the eve of her 19th birthday. That performance led to the role of a lifetime.
I could have danced all night
Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady.
and still have begged for more.
But there was nothing magical about what came next. When it came time to cast the film version of the play, Julie Andrews was passed over in favor of a more established star, Audrey Hepburn.
I've a right to be here if I like, same as you.
I am never cross.
It turned out to be the biggest break of Julie Andrews' career. That same year, she went on to become a movie star in her own right, winning the Oscar for Best Actress in the movie Mary Poppins.
Oh, this is lovely. I know you Americans are famous for your hospitality, but this is really ridiculous.
Of all the characters that you've played, is there any one character that seems the most like you, the most like your personality?
Oh, well, I suppose to some extent they all are a slight reflection of me. But I'm told by friends who know me that probably the most like me is probably something like The Sound of Music. That kind of energy and joy. I do occasionally feel very weary and tired, and I rush into the studio and say, I'm absolutely exhausted. But I say it in such an excited, happy voice that they say it's very hard to believe that I'm really that exhausted, and I mean it. I just happen to say it with enormous enthusiasm.
That enthusiasm endures, even though the one thing that makes Julie Andrews, her singing voice, was all but silenced in 1997 after she underwent surgery on her vocal cords.
I've got about 5 good bass notes, so if you wanted a nice rendition of Old Man River, I could manage it. But it was quite devastating, and I was fairly depressed for a while, and then it was either stay that way for the rest of my life or get on and do something.
So, just like the determined Maria von Trapp, she did something, taking full advantage of a bad habit.
Well, I can occasionally cuss with some wonderful Anglo-Saxon 4-letter words.
I just can't say that.
Stick around.
Daughter Emma says it was her mother's penchant for swearing that led Andrews to discover what's become one of the great joys of her life.
The very first children's book she ever wrote was a result of a game that she was playing with us kids, and we all had a bad habit we had to give up. And the first one who succumbed to their bad habit had to pay a forfeit. And her bad habit was swearing. And she was the first to lose. And my stepsister, Jennifer, said, well, now you have to pay a forfeit. And she said, well, what's my forfeit going to be? And Jennifer said, write me a story. And that's how it began.
She's now up to 18 books, most co-authored with Emma.
So what's next for Julie Andrews? I mean, good grief, you've done it all, lady.
A lot more books, I hope, for children.
Which is not to say she's given up on movies.
Wasn't she supposed to kiss Prince Charming and break the spell?
Well, he's no Prince Charming, but they do look.
Happy now?
She's the voice of the Queen in 2 Shrek movies and has another royal role in Disney's The Princess Diaries.
A princess never chases a chicken.
That will be quite enough of that, thank you.
At 72, Julie Andrews continues to rise above adversity.